Once in a while, I'll bump into a new exercise that I really like. And I was watching an interview with uh, Rudolph Coleman, and I wasn't familiar with that violinist. I might have heard his name before, but when I think of um, Jascha Heifetz's American Students, definitely not a name that I would have associated with Heifetz. So he was with Jascha Heifetz in the 80s and actually probably 70s and 80s because Heifetz died in the early 80s. So, um, but yeah, he looks like a young man in the videos I've seen of him after studying with Heifetz. So I think he was like 18 or something when he went to study with Heifetz in Los Angeles. And yeah, it was really cool to bump into his artistry. And I kind of don't love the Heifetz sound, to be honest. It's probably just because I can't do it, so I'm a little envious, I suppose. But there's a sensibility with it that I think is the best in one on one hand, but on the other hand, it's just something that I think belongs just to Heifetz, and I can appreciate it, but I don't I don't fall over for it. Um, anyway, the one of the coolest takeaways from listening to uh, Rudolph Coleman was this little exercise. Didn't really. He's a pedagogue now, so I don't know if this is something that was handed down to him, either from his teachers in the Netherlands, or whether this was something Heifetz taught him, or whether this is something that, after decades of teaching, this is something that he sort of bumped into as a really excellent technique for coordination. Um, it's just basically doing a trill, but you add you add the bow for each trill note. And I think the key for me is realizing, um, to be honest, when I was younger, I don't think I had issues with passages that were quick. I had a good fiddle, and I think my fingers were just a little more normal sized. And now they're kind of long, and my pinky's a little on the short side relative to my middle finger. So what happens is the optimal shapes that you make in order to articulate different fingers kind of is not in a static position. So perhaps optimally for a pinky trill, I'm a little arched and high on the instrument, and then on something like a maybe a 1 to 2 trill, I'm kind of squat in the wrist, a little more pancakey on the wrist. So, anyways, the point is there's the optimal positions your hand is for fast action for each finger, and this is unfortunate. I think the best case scenario is you don't have to change your configuration at all whenever you do a fast action finger. So this sort of revealed that it's a great exercise for coordination, but beyond that, it also revealed that maybe I can practice this and get it so I can sort of find the happy medium with all the fingers where they can attack the string. So my first practice session with this, I immediately realized there's actually let's just take first position as the only position to do this in, because I tend to think that once you learn an attack, you don't really need to change the pitch in order to change the exercise. I do that with scales too. I have a video on scales. Actually, it's singular. I have a video on scale because I believe if you just do the hardest scale, then you don't have to worry about doing circle of fifths, and you can just save a lot of time. So similar to that, if you just stick the first position and there's only let's see I don't want to misspeak. So I don't really count this, but I guess you could do that. Exercise your first finger. So the exercise is this. And I had to do it with the metronome on a few fingers because I was getting tripped up. So the fingers, let's just go backwards. So the fingers that are tripping me up are half steps with the second and going 2 to 3. It's not bad, but when I first did it, I was really stumbling. And then half step for the fourth finger trilling with the third finger down. Yeah, I think I've gotten better in the last couple of days, actually. So those were very weak. And when I say weak, it's just they weren't coordinated. They'd get fatigued fast. I think one of the harder trills is not hard for me, which is a whole step with the fourth finger. For some reason, this never was an issue. So I think it's just because I'm so used to doing weird things in order to get my pinky to be hammered pretty strongly because it is a relatively short finger. It's not that hard. I think this is probably a hard variation for most violinists would be the whole step pinky. And also borrowing from another video, this is not legit to sort of do a vibrato trill. It's not going to work with the tremolo, but the idea is like, don't do this and then add the bow. All you're doing is having a conniption. You're basically doing a vibrato. So that's not part of this exercise. It's definitely a plunge of each finger with each note. Okay, so that said, so as I was saying, the two fingers that were giving me that are giving me trouble and are, I want to say, 10 times harder than the other fingers are the half step between 2 and 3 and half step between 3 and 4. I could probably do 1 and 2 all day. And in theory, I think you could probably try different parts of your bow too, because it is a coordination exercise. It's not like a get strong on your muscles exercise. It's learning how to be nimble. So it's like, bouncing a ball. It's more I'm sure there's a word for it in sports, but it's like some sort of muscle and brain coordination where it's not just physical, right? So I had to really, I went from trying different things. So I went from pancake wrist, holding it on the instrument to get that pinky to work. And that was sort of like the easiest way I could get it kind of to work. And then I sort of, after I got a little more coordinated after just a day of practicing, I found that this position was best for me. So it's a high index. Well, the index doesn't need to be like poking up in the air, but it does need to be, the violin needs to be resting on that last knuckle where the hand meets. And that was crucial for me to know where that is. And that's hopefully going to go away soon. The ideal is to have the hand really not having to pitch and yaw and roll just to do this exercise, but rather just to be real placid with the hand form and still being able to do very rapid. I guess these are called drills. They're sort of like, I call them drills, like trills, but it's an exercise, I call them drills. So. Let's try the second and third. See, at the end, it's just starting to get slurred. Um, the good thing with those two hard variations is my hand is sort of in the same spot. However, if I was to do the whole step with the pinky, my hand is a completely different position, very open. So I'd like to take this exercise and give it a couple weeks, maybe keep sprinkling in my daily routine of just making sure I'm constantly working the weak ones. And I've already mentioned this, but I did want to stress, play with this. But once you identify the finger or fingers, in my case, two fingers, the two half steps. Once you identify the two or three things that are giving you trouble, just stick with those. Like, do yourself a favor. You've identified what's weak. You don't need to work on something that you're strong at, and you're just going to waste your time. So always apply that rule with all practicing is only work on technical stuff that you're terrible at, and cut out the chaff. Just don't worry about it because you have a natural ability for those things that you have a natural ability for. Yeah, so kudos to Rudolph Coleman. Strong player. I want to say, if he's born in the 50s or something, he's late 60s, early 70s. He looks terrific. He's taking care of himself. That alone is something to try to emulate. Just he looks really healthy. You'd be surprised to see him on a video and know how old he is, because he looks like he's in his early 50s, but he's probably 20 years older. So that's pretty cool. And then he still has really good chops. I think just keeping healthy, you can tell that he cares to keep his facilities in top-notch shape. So kudos to him. Hats off to him, and we're really happy to bump into this exercise, because it's not every day you bump into an exercise where you just feel like a kindergarten student again. You're like, whoa, I can't do this. This is not a piece. This is not a Paganini Caprice, where of course it's tough the first time around, but it was like just a small little, you'd think you could do it kind of drill, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm a noob. So very cool exercise.